The cabin door didn't just open, it exploded inward, slamming against the wall so hard the windows shuddered in their frames. Standing in the doorway was Patricia Harrington, president of the Pine Ridge HOA and self-appointed dictator of the neighborhood. Her face was a mask of fury, eyes wild, lips pulled tight into something between a snarl and a smirk. Her fingers shot out like a dagger, aimed directly at me and the guests seated around my dining table. I braced myself, expecting one of her infamous tirades, those venom-laced speeches about unauthorized gatherings and noise violations that had become her trademark. But this time was different, because then she saw him. At the far end of the table, fork frozen midair with a piece of salmon glistening in the firelight, sat Daniel Morrison, my old college roommate and now the state attorney general. He slowly set down his fork, dabbed his mouth with his napkin, and raised one eyebrow, the kind of deliberate, courtroom-caliber gesture that could silence a jury. Patricia stopped dead. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time since I'd met her, she was utterly speechless. Let me back up. My name is Robert Sullivan, and I own this cabin. 5 acres of lakeside property that's been in my family for 4 generations. My great-grandfather built it with his bare hands in 1922, back when Pine Ridge was nothing but wilderness. This land sits completely outside the reach of any HOA. But try telling that to Patricia Harrington. Patricia had moved into Pine Ridge about 5 years ago, and within months had clawed her way into the role of HOA president. She promised order, standards, and a better community. What she delivered was tyranny. She measured lawns with a ruler, fined people for leaving garbage cans out an hour too long, and once slapped a family with a $300 penalty because their daughter's chalk drawings on the driveway were unsightly. About 6 months ago, she turned her sights on me, the outsider, the man who dared to own property near her fiefdom but refused to kneel to her authority. It started small noise complaints about my occasional weekend gatherings, even though I lived half a mile away through dense forest. Then came letters about trash supposedly blowing onto HOA property. Finally, threats about illegal short-term rentals and unregistered visitors. The truth? I rarely had visitors at all. I'm a wildlife photographer. Solitude is my oxygen. But this weekend was different. Special. My old college roommate James was visiting, and he brought along a couple of our friends from those days, including Daniel Morrison, who'd gone from captain of the debate team to attorney general of the state. We were just 5 old friends catching up over grilled salmon and craft beer on the deck, laughing, swapping stories, enjoying the stillness of the lake. But apparently, Patricia had been watching again, watching with her binoculars, the same way she always seemed to. And when she saw the cars in my driveway, she decided this was her moment. I heard her before I saw her. The crunch of her heels on my gravel driveway, the sharp, determined rhythm of someone marching toward battle. She didn't even knock this time. The door flew open like she owned the place, and Patricia stormed into my dining room in her usual uniform. Pressed khakis, Pine Ridge HOA polo, and clipboard clutched like a weapon. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she snapped, brandishing her clipboard. "I have documented evidence of multiple vehicles on this property, an unauthorized gathering under HOA Regulation 7.3. And furthermore, I believe you are operating an illegal vacation rental, a clear violation of county ordinance." Her voice rang like a gavel in the small cabin, until her eyes finally locked onto Daniel. The room froze. James still had his beer halfway to his lips. Mark's napkin hung suspended in his hand. And Daniel Morrison, the man who could make or break a courtroom with a single look, was staring at Patricia with unnerving calm. "Ma'am," he said, his voice smooth, controlled, carrying the kind of weight that made people instinctively sit up straighter. "I need you to explain why you just entered this gentleman's home without permission." The clipboard trembled in Patricia's hand. Her eyes flicked from Daniel's face to the state seal embroidered on his jacket, draped over the nearby chair. "This is HOA business," she stammered. "I have the authority to—" "Do you have a warrant?" Daniel cut her off, voice sharp as glass. "What?" She blinked. "Are you a law enforcement officer?" "No, but I'm the HOA president, and this property is affecting." Daniel rose to his full height, 6'3", towering over her. His shadow fell across her, like a judge looming over a guilty defendant. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but edged with steel. "What's your full name?" "Patricia. Patricia Harrington," she whispered, her confidence bleeding out with each syllable. "Ms. Harrington," Daniel said, stepping closer, "are you aware that entering a private residence without permission constitutes criminal trespass in the state? That's a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a $5,000 fine." Patricia's face drained of color. Her lips trembled. But the HOA rules clearly state. "The HOA rules don't supersede state law," Daniel said coldly. "And from what I understand, this property isn't even part of your HOA. Isn't that correct, Robert?" I finally found my voice and nodded. "That's right. My family's cabin predates Pine Ridge by 60 years. I've told Ms. Harrington this again and again." Daniel's voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. "I see," he said slowly, turning back to Patricia. "So, you've trespassed onto private property outside your jurisdiction, barged into a home without permission, and interrupted a private dinner party. Ms. Harrington, do you understand you could be arrested right now?" Her hand shook so violently that her clipboard slipped from her grasp. It hit the floor with a crack, scattering papers like shrapnel across my hardwood. Violation notices, photographs of my cabin, pages of obsessive notes she had taken while spying on me from the road. "I was just trying to protect our community," Patricia stammered, her voice hollow. "By breaking the law?" Daniel pressed, his tone now sharp, merciless. He pulled out his phone. "Robert, you got cameras in here?" "Yes," I said, pointing to the small black eye in the corner of the room. 24/7, audio and video. Daniel's mouth curved in satisfaction. "Excellent. Ms. Harrington, I strongly suggest you leave this property immediately, and you would be wise to consult a criminal defense attorney." Patricia bent down, fumbling at the scattered papers, but Daniel's voice stopped her cold. "Leave those. They're evidence now." Her face was pale, her body trembling, the righteous fire that usually fueled her completely extinguished. She rose, her eyes glistening as though she might break into tears. Then, without a word, she turned and fled. Her heels clattered desperately down the gravel path outside, followed by the slam of a car door and the roar of tires spitting gravel as she tore away into the night. The cabin fell into silence, broken only when James let out a low whistle. Well, he muttered, that was something. Daniel sat back down, calmly reclaiming his fork as if nothing had happened. "Robert," he said, "I'll need a copy of that footage, and I want to see everything you've got on her pattern of harassment." I nodded and pulled out the thick folder I'd been keeping. Inside were months' worth of unfounded complaint letters, photographs Patricia had taken of my property, even emails threatening lawsuits under HOA rules that never applied to me. Daniel studied them, his frown deepening with each page. "This isn't just trespassing," he said finally. "This is harassment, abuse of authority, possibly fraud." Mark leaned forward. "From what I've heard, she's the terror of Pine Ridge. My cousin lives there. People are afraid to put up Christmas lights without asking her first." Daniel made notes on his phone. "Robert, you'll need to file a formal complaint. My office will pursue this. She's about to learn her authority has limits." 2 days later, Patricia Harrington received an official notice from the Attorney General's office. She was under investigation for criminal trespass, harassment, and abuse of power. The order was clear. Any further contact with me or my property would mean immediate arrest. The Pine Ridge HOA board scrambled to contain the fallout. An emergency meeting was called that night, and according to my neighbor Tom, it was pandemonium. 3 board members resigned on the spot. The rest turned on Patricia like jackals, furious that her recklessness had put the entire HOA at risk of civil liability. When the board's lawyer explained just how exposed they were, the vote was unanimous. Patricia was stripped of her title as HOA president, but the nightmare didn't end there for her. The Attorney General's investigation uncovered a dark pattern. Patricia had trespassed onto at least 4 other properties, issued fines without board approval, and, most damning, pocketed thousands of dollars for herself. 3 weeks later, Patricia Harrington stood before a judge. She was no longer the imperious tyrant in her pressed khakis and HOA polo. She looked small, diminished, drowning in a gray suit as if it were swallowing her whole. The judge's voice was thunder in the hushed courtroom. "Ms. Harrington, you abuse your position to bully and intimidate your neighbors. You trespass, you harass, and you exploited the very community you swore to serve. This court does not take such violations lightly." Patricia's eyes were glassy. Her hands clutched the defense table like she might collapse without it. "I hereby sentence you to 6 months in jail, suspended pending 2 years of probation. You will pay $5,000 in fines, complete 100 hours of community service, and you are hereby permanently barred from serving on any HOA board in this state." The words hit her like a physical blow. Her knees buckled, her face crumpled, and for the first time, Patricia Harrington, once the iron-fisted tyrant of Pine Ridge, stood broken. "Do you understand these terms, Miss Harrington?" the judge asked. Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. "Yes, Your Honor." And with that, Patricia Harrington's reign of terror ended, not with one of her infamous tirades, but with the sound of her own tears.